The palace stood tall under the violet sky, shining with strange lights that shimmered like stars. Towers of metal and glass rose higher than clouds, and floating walkways connected rooms that no human had ever explored. Inside, the halls were quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the occasional whispers of the palace servants. Princess Lyra sat in her chamber by a wide window, her small feet dangling above the polished floor. She had never walked, not even a single step. Doctors and healers from every corner of the galaxy had tried, using machines, potions, and strange devices, but nothing worked. The machines beeped and whirred. Doctors frowned and shook their heads. The palace staff whispered that Lyra might never walk, and some even said she would never truly play like other children. She watched the world outside her window. Gardens with tall, glowing flowers swayed in the wind, and children ran along the marble paths. Lyra pressed her hands against the glass and imagined herself running with them, feeling the ground beneath her feet. Every time, a small sigh escaped her lips, and she turned back to the cold, silent palace room. In the long corridors below, a human moved quietly, pushing a mop across the shiny floors. Jax, the janitor, was unlike anyone else in the palace. He was small, with messy hair and worn-out clothes, and he carried no fancy tools or glowing devices. To the aliens he seemed almost invisible, a simple human who swept and cleaned and never tried to impress anyone. But Jax worked with care, humming softly as he moved from room to room, his bright eyes noticing even the tiniest mess. One morning, Lyra leaned closer to the window and saw him. He was humming a strange tune and dancing a little while he cleaned. She laughed quietly to herself. No one in the palace ever laughed like that. Even the doctors, with their polished voices, were stiff and serious. This human seemed happy just to do simple things. Curious, Lyra waved. Jax froze for a moment, looking up at her window with wide eyes. He waved back awkwardly and gave a small bow as if greeting royalty, though he was a janitor. Lyra smiled. She had never spoken to him, and yet something about him felt safe. Days passed, and every morning she would wait at the window and he would appear. Sometimes he made faces, sometimes he twirled his mop like a sword, and sometimes he simply hummed while cleaning. She laughed more each day, the sound light and musical. Something stirred in her legs, a small twitch she had never noticed before. She pressed her feet against the floor, wishing she could just try moving just a little. The palace staff noticed her laughter but didn't understand it. The queen, proud and stern, kept her distance, worried that any hope could be dangerous. She had lost patience with all the experiments, all the treatments. Lyra had never complained, but even the queen knew her daughter longed for something simple, a life where she could run and play. One afternoon, Jax accidentally dropped a bucket of water near her chamber. The splash echoed and Lyra gasped. She rushed to the window, worried he might be in trouble. But Jax just laughed, hopping over the puddle in a clumsy human way. He waved at her and made a silly bow, pretending the bucket had been a dangerous trap. Lyra laughed so hard that she nearly fell back into her chair. For the first time she felt her toes wiggle as if testing the floor, curious about what it could do. The next day she whispered to herself, "I want to see him again." When Jax appeared she called out softly, "Hello." Her voice was weak but full of excitement. Jax looked up, surprised, and waved. Then, with a grin, he started cleaning closer to her window, performing small tricks just for her. She clapped her hands, her tiny toes pressing against the floor as she tried to feel what movement might be like. No doctor had ever made her laugh like this. No machine had ever reached her heart. But this simple human, who swept the floors and spoke softly, had done something no one else could. He had shown her that life could be light, playful, and full of small joys. Something inside her stirred, a tiny spark of hope. And for the first time in her life, Princess Lyra felt a strange thought creeping in. Maybe, just maybe, she could try. Maybe walking wasn't about machines or magic, it was about courage and laughter, and a human who believed she could. As the sun set behind the glowing towers, painting the palace in pink and gold, Lyra pressed her hand to the glass and watched Jax wave one last time before disappearing into the hallways. Her heart pounded with something new, something thrilling. She had never felt this before, a feeling that maybe the impossible could happen. For the first time she dared to imagine a life where she could run, where she could laugh freely, where she could be like the children outside her window. And deep inside, she knew it had something to do with the human janitor, the small figure who cleaned floors and carried hope without even realizing it. The next morning, Princess Lyra woke early. The violet sky was still lightening with soft pink clouds, and the palace halls were quiet. She pressed her hands against the window and looked down. Jax, the human janitor, was already at work, humming the same tune he had yesterday. This time she felt braver. She opened the window a little and called softly, "Good morning." Jax stopped in his tracks. He looked up, surprised, and waved. "Good morning, princess," he called back, his voice friendly and warm. "Beautiful day today, isn't it?" Lyra smiled. She had never spoken to anyone outside of her tutors or the doctors. They always used complicated words and cold machines. But this human spoke simply, like a friend, not like a teacher or healer. I like your singing," she said, pointing to his humming. Jax grinned. "Thanks. It's not professional, but it makes cleaning easier. Want me to show you a trick?" He held up his mop like a sword, spinning it carefully. Lyra laughed, the sound soft but bright. She felt a flutter in her legs. For a moment she pressed her toes against the floor, trying to feel what it would be like to move. Her small body had never done this before, and it felt strange but exciting. Can you come closer?" she whispered. Jax paused. He had never been allowed near the princess's chamber. The queen was strict, and humans were not considered important in the palace. But he saw her small, hopeful eyes and nodded. Slowly he pushed his cart of cleaning supplies closer to the window. "Don't worry," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt anything. I just want to show you something." He picked up a small glowing ball from his cart. "Watch this," he said, tossing it gently into the air. The ball hovered for a moment, then spun and rolled back to his hand. "See? It listens to me. But I can't do it without practice." Lyra's eyes widened. It moves like magic," she whispered. She pressed her feet harder against the floor, trying to imagine if she could make herself move too. "Magic?" Jax laughed. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just patience and a little courage." He tossed the ball again, spinning it higher this time. "You want to try?" Lyra shook her head. She had never tried anything like this before. But Jax smiled at her, patient and encouraging, and something inside her stirred. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "I'll help. You just need to take one small step at a time." Lyra's heart pounded. She had heard doctors say similar things, but their voices were cold, and their machines made her feel like a test subject. This human sounded different, warm, playful, and real. She nodded slowly. Jax clapped his hands. "Good. That's all I ask. One small try." He knelt on the floor and held out his hand toward her. Lyra reached out with hers. For the first time, she pressed her tiny foot against the polished floor and lifted it slightly. It wobbled, unsure, but she felt it move. Her heart leapt. "Good. That's amazing." Jax cheered. "See? You can do it." Lyra giggled, a sound full of wonder. She tried again, lifting her other foot, and for a brief moment she felt herself balancing. It was strange, new, and a little scary, but she felt alive in a way she had never felt before. "Again!" she cried, and this time Jax helped guide her tiny steps. Slowly she moved toward the glowing ball. Her legs shook, but she didn't stop. Every small movement made her laugh, and every laugh made her legs feel stronger. From the hall outside, a few palace servants peeked in. They gasped quietly. No human had ever helped the princess like this. Doctors and machines had failed, but this simple human janitor was making her try, making her feel joy and giving her courage. "Do you feel it?" Jax asked gently. "The floor beneath you? You're doing it. You're moving." I can." Lyra whispered, her eyes shining. She pressed forward, lifting her foot higher, feeling her balance wobble and then steady. She took another small step, then another. Jax clapped and cheered, his laughter filling the chamber. Suddenly the glowing ball rolled away, and Lyra chased it with tiny steps. She stumbled once but caught herself. She laughed harder than she ever had. The ball rolled back to Jax and he tossed it gently again. Each step she took was a victory, a moment of pure freedom. The queen watched from a hidden balcony, her face calm but her eyes wide. She had never expected a human to do this. No alien machine, no device, no doctor had ever brought even a single step from her daughter. And here, in the quiet of the morning, the princess was moving. Jax smiled and held out his hand. "Take my hand if you want," he said softly. "But if you want, you can try alone. You're stronger than you think." Lyra looked at him, then at the ball rolling before her. She hesitated, then let go of his hand. She moved forward on her own, small, careful steps, laughing and trembling with joy. It was not perfect, but it was real. She had moved. She had tried. And the human janitor, the one who swept the floors and hummed songs, had shown her that movement was possible. Not with machines, not with magic, but with patience, courage, and hope. For the first time, Princess Lyra felt the excitement of trying, of failing and trying again, and of discovering what she could do. The palace had never seen anything like it. And somewhere deep in her heart, she knew that everything was about to change. The morning sun filled the palace halls with a soft, golden glow. Princess Lyra had already been awake for hours, her eyes bright with excitement. She could still feel the tiny steps she had taken yesterday, the wobble of her legs, the thrill of moving forward. Today she wanted more. Down in the corridors, Jax, the human janitor, was pushing his mop cart. He hummed the same cheerful tune he always did, and somehow, Lyra felt her heart lift just hearing it. She pressed her hands to the window and called out, "Jax, come here." Jax froze for a moment, then looked up. He smiled and nodded, quickly wheeling his cart closer. "Good morning, Princess," he said. "You ready to try something new?" Lyra nodded eagerly. She had learned yesterday that moving wasn't about machines or magic, it was about courage and trying again. She wanted to test her legs today, see what she could really do. Jax knelt on the floor and held out his hand. "Take my hand or go on your own." "I'll be right here," he said softly. Lyra looked at him, then down at the polished floor. Her toes pressed against it, trembling. She lifted one foot, then the other. She wobbled, almost fell, but steadied herself. Slowly she moved toward Jax, step by small step. The palace staff, hidden behind corners, gasped in amazement. No one had ever seen the princess do this. Then a small accident happened. One of the hovering maintenance robots rolled too close to Jax's cart and bumped it. The cart tipped slightly, spilling a few cleaning tools and a small glowing ball onto the floor. Jax jumped back, laughing nervously. "Oops. That's my fault." Lyra's eyes lit up. She had never been allowed to touch the robots, they were always too dangerous. But this time she felt a rush of courage. She stepped forward toward the ball, her tiny legs shaking. With each step she grew more confident. She reached out and picked it up, holding it carefully in her hands. "Good job," Jax cheered. "See? You're doing amazing." For a moment, Lyra stood still, holding the ball and looking around the palace hall. Then she took another step, and another. Her legs were strong enough now that she could balance for a few seconds at a time. She laughed, the sound ringing like music through the hall. Jax clapped and laughed with her. "That's it. You're walking. Look at you." Encouraged, Lyra started moving more boldly. She took several small steps toward a tall pillar at the end of the hall, using it for support when she wobbled. Then she tried turning, stepping carefully around the obstacles in her path. Each movement was shaky but real. The palace staff, who had never dared to hope for this, began to cheer quietly from the corners. The alien doctors, who had tried every machine, potion, and device, stared in disbelief. No one had ever helped the princess like this. Jax smiled, proud but humble. "See? I told you. It's not magic. It's just trying step by step. And having a little fun helps too." Lyra giggled. "It is fun," she said. She dropped the glowing ball and stepped toward it, her balance improving with every movement. She picked it up again and tossed it gently to Jax, who caught it with a grin. The ball rolled slightly away and Lyra chased it, her steps growing longer, steadier. She laughed so loudly that it echoed through the palace corridors. Her legs wobbled but held her weight. She was moving forward, walking on her own. Suddenly she stumbled, nearly falling. Her heart raced, fear mixing with excitement. But Jax was there in an instant, steadying her with a gentle hand. "You're okay," he said softly. "You just lost your balance. Keep trying." Lyra nodded, her determination stronger than her fear. She took another step, then another, this time without needing Jax's hand. She felt a rush of joy unlike anything she had known. The floor beneath her felt real, alive, like it had been waiting for her all along. "Princess Lyra," Jax called. "You're walking on your own. This is incredible." She spun around, laughing, taking steps in a circle, feeling the strength in her legs grow with each motion. The glowing ball bounced beside her and she chased it again, then picked it up, holding it triumphantly. From a hidden balcony, the alien queen watched silently. Her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed her astonishment. No alien device, no healer, no technology had ever succeeded. And here, a simple human janitor had done the impossible. He had made her daughter walk. Jax knelt down again, smiling. "You can do more than you think. Just keep trying one step at a time." Lyra beamed. She took another few steps, then stopped and raised her arms in joy. She was walking. Truly walking. Her heart raced with happiness, and her laughter was louder than ever. The palace halls, usually quiet and formal, seemed alive with her joy. The flowers in the gardens, visible through the tall windows, glowed brighter. The walls seemed to hum in celebration. Jax looked at her and said softly, "You did it. You really did it. I knew you could." Lyra ran a few steps more, laughing and wobbling, then stopped and hugged the human tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for helping me." Jax smiled, his eyes warm. "No, princess. You did this yourself. I just helped you believe it was possible." For the first time, Lyra felt free. She had taken her first real steps. She had discovered her strength, her courage, and the joy of movement. And she had learned that even the smallest human could change everything, even in a palace filled with alien technology and power. That morning the impossible became real. And Princess Lyra would never forget the human janitor who made her believe she could walk. The palace was unusually quiet that morning. Usually, the halls echoed with the hum of machines and the careful footsteps of servants, but today something had changed. Princess Lyra moved through the corridors with small, steady steps, her legs trembling but strong. She was walking, truly walking, and the palace seemed to hold its breath in awe. Jax, the human janitor, followed behind her, carrying his mop and cart as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But to everyone watching, he was no ordinary janitor. He had done what no machine, no doctor, and no alien expert had ever done. He had helped the princess walk. Lyra's laughter echoed through the marble halls. She stepped carefully, then began to move faster, wobbling but smiling. She twirled once, her arms lifted, feeling the freedom of motion for the first time in her life. The palace staff peeked from behind doors and corners, whispering in disbelief. The alien doctors who had spent years trying to help the princess were speechless. Their devices had failed. Their experiments had produced nothing. And yet, here was a simple human who had inspired a child to find her own strength. The queen watched from a hidden balcony above. Her face was calm, her expression regal, but inside, a storm of emotions swirled. She had feared disappointment, had assumed nothing could help her daughter. But now she saw Lyra laughing, running, and taking steps on her own. Her heart ached with a strange mixture of pride and astonishment. Lyra spotted Jax and ran toward him, arms outstretched. "Look, I'm walking," she cried. She stumbled once, then steadied herself. "I can really walk." Jax knelt quickly, catching her gently. "You're doing it. You're walking all by yourself," he said, smiling with pure joy. "See? I knew you could." The staff gasped as Lyra took a few more steps without help, moving toward a small floating ball. She chased it, laughed, and caught it. Then she twirled, letting the ball roll away again, and chased it once more. Every step was a miracle, and every laugh was proof that humans could succeed where technology had failed. The queen finally stepped out from her balcony, her long robes flowing behind her. Her presence commanded attention, but even she could not hide the amazement in her eyes. She watched her daughter move, full of life and energy, something she had thought impossible. "You," the queen said softly, her voice calm but trembling slightly. "You have done the impossible." She looked down at Jax, the human janitor. "How did you do this?" Jax smiled humbly. "I didn't do it, Your Majesty," he said. "She did it herself. I just helped her believe she could." The queen's gaze softened as she observed the princess. Lyra's face was radiant with joy. Her small steps carried her toward freedom, and she laughed as she twirled around the hall. "You see," Jax said quietly, "sometimes the smallest encouragement makes the biggest difference." The palace staff who had once doubted him now watched with awe. Aliens whispered to each other, realizing that perhaps humans were more than they appeared. They lacked the advanced technology and power of the palace, but they had courage, creativity, and the ability to inspire. Lyra ran toward a floating platform and climbed onto it carefully, her balance improving with each step. She turned and looked at Jax, her eyes shining. "I can do it," she said, her voice full of triumph. "I can really walk." Jax clapped his hands. "Yes, that's it. You're amazing." The queen stepped closer, her regal composure steady, but her eyes wet with emotion. "Lyra," she said softly, "you have done what no one thought possible. And it seems a human has helped you." She looked at Jax. "I see now that humans are not what I believed. They have courage and heart." Lyra ran back to Jax, laughing. "Thank you. Thank you for helping me," she exclaimed. She hugged him tightly, her small arms wrapping around his waist. Jax hugged her back, careful not to unbalance her. The palace staff began to applaud quietly, then louder, until the halls echoed with cheers. The alien doctors, humbled, stepped forward, nodding respectfully. They realized that their machines and formulas had failed, But the human had succeeded through patience, kindness, and encouragement. Lyra ran to a hallway lined with mirrors and gasped at her reflection. She saw herself standing upright, moving freely, and her heart swelled with joy. She had never imagined she could see herself like this. She spun around, her laughter echoing through the palace, and for the first time she felt truly alive. Jax watched her, smiling. "You did this yourself," he said again. "I just helped you believe it was possible." The queen approached, placing a gentle hand on Lyra's shoulder. "You are stronger than I ever imagined," she said. She looked at Jax. "And you have shown us something we could not see. Humans are remarkable." Lyra took a few more steps, then ran to a floating garden in the hall, her laughter filling the air. Jax followed, smiling humbly, proud of what he had helped her achieve. The palace seemed brighter now, as if the joy and courage of a child could change everything. And that morning, in the golden light of the palace, a miracle was seen. The impossible had happened. A human had inspired an alien princess to walk. And in doing so, he had shown the palace that courage, heart, and belief could achieve what even the most advanced technology could not. Princess Lyra laughed, ran and spun again, and Jax whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning." The sun was high in the sky, streaming through the tall windows of the palace. Princess Lyra ran across the marble floors, her laughter echoing off the walls. She was no longer the small, hesitant child who had never walked. She ran with confidence, twirling, skipping, and spinning around. Every step was full of joy and freedom. Jax, the human janitor, followed behind her quietly, pushing his mop cart. To anyone else he looked like an ordinary worker, cleaning the palace floors. But today everyone in the palace could see the truth. He was the reason this miracle had happened. The queen stood on a balcony above, watching silently. Her arms were crossed and her face was calm, but her eyes shone with a mixture of pride and disbelief. She had watched her daughter take her first steps, run and laugh, all because of a human who had done nothing extraordinary except believe in her. The courtiers and palace staff gathered in the halls, whispering to one another. Some bowed low, unsure how to react. Others stared in astonishment. No alien doctor, no machine, no experiment had ever achieved this. The human had succeeded where they had failed. Finally, the queen descended the grand staircase. Her robes shimmered in the sunlight, her presence commanding attention. The hall grew quiet, every eye on her. She stopped in front of Jax, who straightened nervously. "You," the queen said, her voice calm but firm, "have done something no one else could." She looked down at him, her piercing eyes softening. "You have given my daughter the gift of movement, of life, of freedom." Jax bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty, it was not me. Princess Lyra did this herself. I only helped her believe it was possible." The queen studied him for a moment. Then she nodded slowly. "Humans are remarkable," she said. "They may seem small, ordinary, and unimportant. Yet they have courage, patience, and a heart that even the most advanced alien minds cannot measure." Lyra ran to her mother, smiling and laughing. "Mother, look at me. I'm walking. I'm really walking." Her voice was full of joy, and her eyes sparkled with pride. She ran a few steps and spun, then grabbed Jax's hand and pulled him along. "Come on. Come play with me." Jax chuckled and let her tug him across the hall. He laughed with her, enjoying the moment. "All right, princess," he said. "But careful. Don't run too far." The courtiers and staff began to cheer, their applause filling the palace. Even the alien doctors, humbled and amazed, stepped forward. One of them said quietly, "We spent years, countless experiments, and this human did what we could not." Lyra ran back and hugged Jax tightly. "Thank you," she exclaimed. "You helped me." Jax smiled, his eyes soft. "No, princess. You did this. I just showed you it was possible." The queen approached, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. "You are stronger than I ever imagined," she said softly. "And you, human, have taught us a lesson we could not have learned otherwise. Technology and power are not everything. Courage, kindness, and belief can achieve the impossible." The palace staff bowed to Jax, acknowledging him for the first time as more than just a janitor. He had no titles, no advanced devices, no grand status, just a heart that believed in a child. Yet that heart had changed the palace forever. Lyra ran to a small garden inside the hall, her steps steady and confident. Flowers with glowing petals bent gently as she passed, as if celebrating her newfound freedom. Jax followed her quietly, watching her run, his heart full. "Look, Jax," Lyra called, pointing to the flowers. "They're dancing with me." Jax laughed softly. "Yes, princess. They're celebrating with you." The queen stepped closer, watching her daughter with a soft smile. "You have brought joy not only to yourself but to everyone in this palace," she said. "And you have shown us that even a human, someone we once underestimated, can accomplish what no alien could." Lyra ran to Jax again, her small hands holding his. "Will you teach me more things?" she asked eagerly. Jax smiled, kneeling so he was eye level with her. "Of course, princess. We can try anything one step at a time." The queen watched silently, realizing that her daughter's life had changed in ways she could not have imagined. She had been saved not by alien machines, but by a human's heart and patience. A small human had shown them all that greatness could come from the simplest acts of care. As the sun moved higher, the palace was filled with laughter, joy, and a new sense of hope. Princess Lyra ran across the halls, her steps confident and free. Jax followed her, smiling humbly, proud but careful not to take credit for the miracle. And in that moment, the palace learned a truth it had never known. Power, technology, and status were not the only ways to achieve greatness. Sometimes, courage, belief, and a simple human heart could change everything. Princess Lyra twirled one last time, her laughter ringing through the palace. She ran to Jax and hugged him tightly. "You're my hero," she said, her small arms wrapping around him. Jax chuckled softly. "You're my hero too, princess. You did it all yourself." The queen watched them, her heart full. The palace had changed forever. A human had shown them the impossible and in doing so had become a part of their world. From that day on, humans were no longer underestimated in the palace. And Princess Lyra, who had never walked, now ran, laughed, and played freely, thanks to a simple janitor with a heart bigger than any machine or alien device.